Thanks for taking a few minutes to listen and learn about the Pod D and Quick Track improvement work that will kick off on Wednesday, August 1st. We'll be covering the high-level changes, the reason for the work, what will look different starting on Wednesday, the project timeline, and how you can provide feedback. The biggest changes you'll notice starting on August 1st will be the following. Patients will now be directed down 2 pathways of care based on their ESI categorization and updated split flow criteria. So patients will be designated as D or A, C, and E following their triage with the triage nurse. There will no longer be a quick track designation at triage. Patients will also be seen in order of the longest wait time by available intake providers. All providers will conduct their intake processes through Tier 1, 2, or 3. So for medics leaving Huddle today, plan to start your day there versus going to D1 or D3 as you might have done in the past. The Pod D RN should connect with the provider at the start of the shift to let them know that they are there and ready to start taking treatment room patients. The split flow criteria have been updated and expanded. Triage RNs, please take time to review this document that's posted at the triage desks, and please consider them as rules over the next 4 weeks to follow. I'm sure you're wondering why we need to make modifications to our current process, so here are some of those reasons. The ED flow team has been hearing from staff from all disciplines that there's opportunity for improvement in our low acuity treatment process. The 3-track flow model we've been using can also lead to imbalance in access to a provider. So this new process allows for equal access to all intake providers. All providers should be active unless there are not enough vertical 3s, 4s, and 5 patients to be seen in the waiting room for 3 providers at peak times. This move should also simplify our triage process and eliminate challenges in determining whether a patient is appropriate for Quick Track or for Pod D. And as you know, good communication is the best way to ensure the right patients get to the right resources. Moving the provider teams closer to the triage teams should improve the ability to consult on patients where it might be unclear if they are appropriate for Pod D or should be directed to A, C, or E. So what will look different today as you go out onto the floor? TR3 and TR2 will serve as intake rooms going forward. TR1 will continue to be an intake room as it is today. The results waiting space in TR2 will now be eliminated. D3 is now an additional treatment room with a bed. D1 will remain set up the same way it is today as an intake room, but will be used as a results waiting space or a treatment room depending on the patient need. The split flow triage criteria are going to be different, so please use these during your shift and consider them as rules. For the triage RN team, if you have a patient who doesn't seem to fit Pod D criteria based on these guidelines or these criteria, but you think may be appropriate for that area, please talk with an intake provider prior to assigning the patient a location and track it on the patient assignment log that's located on each of the triage desks. We will collate the information and use it to update the split flow criteria if needed. The scribe team will be maintaining issues logs in each of their intake rooms. Please talk to them to record any equipment needs, room setup, or other concerns that you might have that can be recorded in this fashion. These will be reviewed daily and issues will be resolved as soon as possible. And as an FYI, we'll be using a few metrics to determine success of this process change. These measures include length of stay for vertical 3 through 5 patients, the number of patients seen per hour through intake, and patient satisfaction scores for patients seen in Pod D. Wednesday, August 1st is our go-live date for the change. To be clear, this project should be viewed as a process change that will continue unless there's reason to discontinue after 4 weeks. You may see additional small changes over the next 4 weeks as we refine workflow, but we don't anticipate making any large modifications during that time, so we have good information to determine if this process is better than our current workflow. The ED flow steering and frontline advisory teams will meet regularly over the next 4 weeks to evaluate the issues logs, review any enhancements to the process, and make a recommendation about continuation additional modifications, or to stop and revert to our current process. This will happen at the end of August. We'll communicate the next phase of work after the 4-week process change time period. As I mentioned, issues logs will be available for all staff to complete in the intake rooms. You can either complete the form yourself or ask the scribe to record your concern. Please give us enough detail and your name so we can follow up with questions if we have any. The ED Flow Steering Team and Frontline Advisory Team will be rounding over the next several weeks throughout each day to make sure all disciplines are clear about their roles and to listen to feedback. Feel free to connect with any of us when you see us down there. If it's more convenient, please feel free to send an email or make a call to any of the people listed on the slide. We'll be reviewing feedback regularly and resolve issues as timely as possible. Thanks for listening to this presentation, and thanks in advance for your help implementing this process change over the next 4 weeks.